In this video, we're going to be going through the supplier setup. So into the supplier module, and then I'm going to expand the setup folder at the bottom of here. The first thing we're going to do is create a factor. So if when we're paying suppliers we don't actually pay through to their bank account, we actually pay through to a factoring account, we can set them up. So again, it's a list type box with the list and detail tabs. So to create a new one, I have to click the new button on the toolbar. Okay, and then I can key the details in. So it's factors, arrows, and they're going to be based in the UK, and it's going to be factoring house, okay, so there's the address details as standard. Now, the thing that's obviously important if it's a factor company is to put the bank details in, so we can obviously key the sort code and the account number in. Okay, so when I'm happy with that, I'm going to save and close. Okay, next thing we're going to do is create a new payment method. So open the payment method option. Let's create a new payment method. We can just key this in on a blank line. It's going to be called remittance and file. And in the payment type, we're going to have remittance and file. Okay, so now click save and close to come out of that. Next thing we're going to do is go and create a new supplier. So new supplier wizard. Supplier name is going to be UK supplier. Oops. And the contact is just a UK supplier. Mr. UK contact even. The name should have been a UK supplier. Okay, now we've got a template here for the suppliers, but they're not really used in the way that a customer would be. You could go and set your own templates up, so you can select from a list of templates. But if I look in here, you'll see there's only one, which is like a default one for the United Kingdom. So you could set extra ones up and then select them in here, so that the details will default. So if you've got French ones, a lot of French suppliers, or various country suppliers, you could set them up in here, but we haven't done that. It's basically because a customer will create their own account on the web, but a supplier won't really do that, so it's not as necessary really for a supplier account, and we're probably not going to create as many supplier accounts as we would customer accounts. Okay, so if I click next, we can see that some of the details here have been defaulted from that template, so I can again key the address details in, etc. Okay, we're going to change the payment terms on this one to be the 2% discount if paid within 7 days. So I'll select that. And then I'm going to finish my wizard, which will in turn open the supplier up. So very similar between customer and supplier, the way that all the wizards work and everything, where you get the end of the wizard, then it opens the record up and things like that. It's quite consistent through the system, so once you get used to it, it's quite nice and easy to use. Okay, I'm going to save and close on that. I'm going to create a new supplier, which is this time going to be a US supplier. Mr. US contact. Now, as I said for the last one, there's no template for US. So when we click next on that, you'll see that everything defaults to GBP. Nothing's changed in relation to the United States one. And I have to put in the country in there. And obviously nothing will still change in here with relation to the currencies, etc. US dollars in there, so I need to make sure I select that. And I'm just going to fill the rest of the details in as well. I need to change the tax code as well to be correct, which is the 0 rated purchases one. Okay, so when I've finished, I'll click the finish button, which will again close the wizard and show me my supplier record. If I go into setup, I can see the details I entered there, see the US dollar and everything, my tax code, etc. So I'm going to save and close on that, and I'm going to create one final supplier, which is going to be my French supplier. Okay, so again, next, change that to be France and key the address details in. Okay, and on this one I obviously need to be careful that I change that to be euros for the currency, and we're going to change the purchase tax this time to UK 8, which is our standard rated purchases one. Okay, once again I'll finish the wizard and save and close. Okay, now what we're going to do is enter some opening balances for the accounts that we've just created. So back down to the setup, and the top option in the setup folder is opening balance. Okay, so we'll start putting them in. So the first one is going to be for a UK supplier. Okay, it's going to be an invoice. The bill number is just going to be generated, and the bill date is going to be 1st the 11th 2007. Again, you should change your date back, your system date back to be the November date or the December date, I should say, just to make sure you get all your transactions in the right period. Okay, so now I've got my first line in. Now, although on the customer one it said F6 to copy, the F6 does still work on here, but the little tag's missing off the bottom. So once I'm happy that I've got the details in there, I can just hit the F6 button and it will copy it down for me. So this time I just need to change the details So this time it's the 7th of November. It's PI2. And it's going to be for £200. Okay, and then the next one's going to be a credit line, so I'm not going to copy that down. Just put it in. Credits. This is going to be the 1st of the 12th, 2007. And then my total gross on the credit is just 50. Okay, and then the next line is going to be a French, so I can just type in part of it there. It's going to be an opening invoice for the 14th of December. Reference 123, €1,000. And lastly, the US supplier. Again, it's an invoice. This time it's going to be dated 1st again. 1st of the 12th. Reference of 234. It's going to be for €2,000 US dollars. Okay, so I've got all my details in there. Click the save button. That'll then save all them to the correct suppliers and also post the journals and everything for the nominal ledger. If I go into history again, I can see them all there, so I can see what I've done. Okay, so just save and close out of that screen. There's my manual opening balances created. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is some importing into the supplier ledger or the supplier module. Okay, so again, back to the system manager. That's very similar to customer, the imports that we're going to do in here. We're going to have 3 files that we want to import. So into supplier, and if I just, the first 2 files are going to be on the suppliers one, not opening balances, just suppliers. So if I browse file, it takes me to where my import files are. Now we've got 3 here. One is suppliers import, that's the first file I'm going to bring in. That's just a list of suppliers' names and addresses with nothing else. The second one is suppliers import, which is a list of names and addresses, but it'll also have an opening balance figure on. It's just a lump sum balance figure that will basically just put one balance amount on the ledger. It's not going to break it down into individual invoices. And the last one is just opening balances on their own. No supplier details at all in there, just opening balances. Okay, so the first one that I want to bring in is the suppliers import. Okay, so next and start importing. I don't need to make any amendments to the first 2 files at all. Successfully imported. And I'll go and do the same again for the second file. Suppliers import with opening balances. Okay, still using that suppliers import file, import routine. Okay, that's successfully imported too. And then finally, I need to bring in my opening balance, supplier opening balance one. But basically, I need to amend that again like I did for customers. So suppliers opening balances import. Okay, we'll open that up and have a look. And exactly the same as the customer one, we're going to have to put our supplier code in here. Now, for this one, we can see the first 2 are going to be our French ones, and our second 2 are going to be our US ones. So I need to go and get them supplier codes from the system. So if I go into supplier and find supplier and have a look for my French supplier, which is top of the list there, that's sup-5 zeros and a 4. So I can just go and put that in. And then the US one is sub 3. So okay, so that's in okay. So I'm going to save my file now, and this should import 2 opening balances, 4 opening balances, 2 to French supplier, 2 to US supplier. Okay, so if I go into the import wizard again, want to import into supplier. Supplier opening balances, this time the top, import routine, browse for my supplier opening balances import, and start importing, and hopefully, yeah, successfully imported the table. Okay, next and finish. And now if I go into find supplier, not only have I got all my suppliers in there that I've imported, I've obviously got the opening balances in there. And you can see my French and US supplier there. It's got opening balance figures there. Okay, that concludes the setup of the supplier module. The next video will look at inventory setup.